Breaking news tonight, a Diddy knife attack. That's right. A victim describes ambushing Combs with a knife, attacking him with a knife after he allegedly her. And Diddy paranoia? Now Diddy claiming prosecutors are in disguise, spying on him in his jail cell as he claims, "I'm not a monster," as he files a $50 million lawsuit against a witness. Now think about it. JFK, RFK, MLK, and Diddy? Yes, demands mounting for the secret Diddy files to be released. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Diddy hits back. A $50 million defamation suit filed by the music mogul against grand jury witness who claims to have infamous freak-off tapes.
Lawsuit, schmawsuit. I want to talk about a Diddy knife attack. An alleged victim claims she was gang at the hands of Diddy, a revenge after she brings up Tupac Shakur's murder, and after that says she goes to stab Diddy. Straight out to crimeonline.com investigative reporter Sydney Sumner. What happened?
Nancy, that's correct. Ashley Parham claims that she was attacked at a friend's home. She made this comment to a friend, a man she was kind of seeing, and she claims he lured her to his home knowing that Diddy and these other men would be there and attack her. So she claims Diddy attacked her viciously with a TV remote. And after that attack, she claims all of the men who were involved acted like nothing happened. She walked out into the backyard of this home, found Diddy and his associates smoking casually in the backyard. He makes a comment to her, "I'm surprised you can walk." He claims that he drugged her like a horse. And she had already armed herself with a kitchen knife because she's in fear. She couldn't find her clothes, she couldn't find her purse, her cell phone, and she's at this man's house that she doesn't know very well. So she arms herself with a kitchen knife. She confronts these men out in the backyard. And with Diddy's comments to her, she was angry and she attacked him with a knife. She claims that he begged for his life. He was scared. And this thought just came to her, like, this is so insane. This is so crazy. I can't do this. So instead of stabbing him, she takes off running to a neighbor's house, and that neighbor then called law enforcement.
Joining me, Lynn Shaw, founder and director of Lynn's Warriors. Their sole effort as a nonprofit is to stop sex trafficking and help sex assault victims. You know, Lynn Shaw, when I hear that, my blood boils because I have investigated and prosecuted so many cases, vicious cases, where after the rapist just acts like no big deal. According to her, and of course, Sean Combs is innocent until proven guilty, after a gang, including by using a TV remote on this victim, Sean Combs and his gang is standing outside smoking, acting like nothing happened.
Well, usual behavior from people like this, these monsters, Nancy. My question would be, she ran to a neighbor's house. The neighbor called law enforcement. I always go to where is the follow-up to hold the accountability? What happened there? And I'm going to go back to also, were there any women there that were watching this that could have helped her, who could speak out?
To Sydney Sumner, right now, yes, Lynn Shaw is right. Were there other witnesses? Yeah, I doubt they're saying anything because they were part of a gang, according to this witness. And you know what I smell? Joshua Ritter, high-profile lawyer joining me out of LA jurisdiction. I smell witnesses that can either cough up about this knife attack on Diddy or choose to be co-defendants.
I don't know what witnesses exactly are going to materialize after this whole thing. I mean, we're talking about somebody making allegations from decades ago. What exactly are they going to walk into court with is my question. And so it's no wonder that people are coming out of the woodwork decades and decades later, because it's so easy to do at this point when you've got a man in prison who seriously can't defend himself.
Okay, I don't know if something's wrong with my IFB, but no, none of these people are going to walk into court strolling in casually. They're going to be dragged into court, or else they can choose to be a co-defendant. And when you say, who are the witnesses? For one, Ashley Parham, the woman you're just hearing about that says she was at the hands of Diddy and was so upset, she went after him with a knife. And let me just say, Dr. Sherry Schwartz joining us, renowned forensic psychologist. Dr. Sherry, the fact that she is admitting to trying to stab Sean Combs after an alleged rape, to me, gives her story a certain air of credibility, because usually witnesses don't admit they committed an aggravated assault with a knife.
That's right. The fact that she is telling on herself effectively that she went after him with a knife, and it sounds like intended to do him harm before her senses caught up with her and she went for help, she's implicating herself in a very serious crime.
The alleged knife attack on Sean Combs coming to light as he files a $50 million lawsuit. Now, wait. Sean Combs is answering up to nearly 50 potential lawsuits, plus a massive federal indictment charging sex trafficking, and he is suing for $50 million. What? Listen.
While Sean Diddy Combs has been sued 42 times in just over a year, the disgraced mogul has just filed one of his own. Combs has logged a $50 million defamation lawsuit against grand jury witness Courtney Burgess and his lawyer Ariel Mitchell. Combs accuses Burgess of pretending to have proof that Mr. Combs engaged in heinous acts, knowing no such proof exists, referring to sex tapes Burgess claims depict Combs sexually assaulting celebrities and minors.
A $50 million lawsuit. I would think that would be filed against Sean Combs, but it's the reverse. Okay, Sydney Sumner, what's happening?
Nancy, Sean Combs is claiming that this is a defamation suit. He's claiming that people are pretending to have evidence of these freak-offs that doesn't exist. He claims that Burgess, who says he has 8 tapes depicting Combs sexually assaulting celebrities, minors, Combs claims those don't exist, and Burgess is lying, and it is damaging his reputation. It's tainting the jury pool. It's causing irreparable harm.
Well, let's take a listen. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. This is what Burgess tells us.
Depict sex, a lot of celebrities, people getting high, drunk, like in a trance. Because one was on a table and they was eating off her. You understand? And they was, I'm looking at this girl straight naked and she don't feel like she embarrassed or anything. Water poured on her, whatever it was, tubs. It seemed like there was more in a trance than more than drunk. Because you're drunk, you're usually slurring.
That's Courtney Burgess describing exactly what is in the tape that he has. Quote, it depicts sex, people getting high, drunk, stuck in a trance because one's on the table and eating off us. I'm looking at this girl naked, not embarrassed or anything, water poured all over her, tubs. Yes, it was more than a trance. It was more than drunk. What is he saying, Sydney?
Nancy, I think he's saying that it appears the people in these tapes aren't fully aware of what's going on. This woman who's completely naked in this video has no shame about covering her body. These people just they're not fully there. Maybe they're drugged. Maybe they're on a combination of things. But Burgess is saying it does not appear that Sean Combs' partners in these sex tapes are aware that they're having sex or that they're being recorded.
I don't think that's having sex, Sydney. When someone is you and you're passed out, drunk or high, comatose, that's not sex. That is without consent. Listen.
Burgess maintains that he is telling the truth about receiving a flash drive containing the video files and Porter's manuscript through an intermediary. Burgess calling Diddy out for having the nerve to sue when he will, quote, rot in jail for what he's done. His lawyer, Ariel Mitchell, who claims to have seen the tapes, stands by Burgess, calling Combs' suit a pathetic ploy to silence victims and plans to countersue.
Okay, so here's my question. Sean Combs, Diddy, is suing Burgess and his lawyer, claiming that they fabricated the whole story about tapes of freak-offs. Freak-offs basically on video. So if they don't exist, then why is Agnefello demanding they be handed over? Listen.
Attorney Mark Agnefello is demanding that prosecutors hand over multiple videos of Sean Combs' infamous freak-offs, claiming the tapes prove his innocence. Prosecutors have described the tapes as elaborate and produced sex performances, but Agnefello claims they depict private sexual activity between Combs and Cassie Ventura, who he says, quote, not only consented, but thoroughly enjoyed herself.
And there he goes, claiming the tapes show that all of the alleged were consensual, including Cassie Ventura. Now, remember, Cassie Ventura was caught on video running down a hotel corridor, a public hotel, with Combs chasing her in a towel because she didn't want to return to a freak-off, according to her. And this video bears that out. So here's my question. Josh Ritter, if the tapes don't exist, and why is Agnefello and Combs making such a big deal about getting them returned, handed over to the defense?
Because what is the government doing holding on to them? The government, this is not how it works. The government doesn't get to say, we have a bunch of evidence. We have evidence showing you performing certain crimes and not turn that over. He has a right to have that. He has a right to demand it from the government.
You
That's
don't like
the whole
to say it,
point
do
of our
you,
criminal
Ritter?
justice system.
You don't like saying it. A lot of people don't. Video of him performing certain crimes. You mean alleged victims while they're drugged and pass out? Say it. That's what's alleged. That's what he's defending against. It doesn't taste good, does it? It feels bad because it is bad.
And Agnefello is saying, if you've got it, then produce it. If you're gonna speak about having it, then actually come with the goods. Instead of telling everybody what you've got and tainting the jury pool, then actually show up with the goods and the evidence, and we'll take a look for ourselves and see exactly what these videotapes show.
Diddy insists he is not a monster, and he pushes back against an alleged media frenzy by individuals seeking to profit at his expense, claims the rapper's attorneys.
As Sean Combs files a $50 million lawsuit, more. Apparently, baby oil rearing its ugly head again. Listen.
A Diddy accuser using the pseudonym Nicole, who says she had a 4-year relationship with Sean Combs, says she last saw him in July of 2024. Nicole claims Combs shoved 2 pills down her throat, shortly after which she passed out. She says she woke up to their hotel room destroyed, surrounded by empty bottles of baby oil and wine, food containers, towels, and a hookah. Nicole says she immediately left with no word from Combs until receiving an invitation to see him in New York, the day before his arrest.
Wow, Sydney Sumner, what is she saying? And how does baby oil keep popping up throughout this investigation?
We don't know about the baby oil, Nancy, but this woman, Nicole, filed an anonymous lawsuit as a Jane Doe back last year, and she claims that over 4 years, Diddy repeatedly drugged her and raped her while she was drugged over their relationship. And in one instance, she even became pregnant with his child. She claims at that point, an associate of Diddy, a woman who she never really identified, called her and berated her to have an abortion to get rid of this baby. She ended up miscarrying anyway and spent months avoiding Diddy's contact, but he would always suck her in again.
You know, Dr. Sherry Schwartz, even if not her real name, Nicole, is telling the truth, I have no reason to doubt her. She's going to be attacked and torn to shreds on cross-exam. I'll tell you why. Because she says these occurred over a period of time, and the defense is going to argue, then why did you go back? Very often, the psychopathy of a and his victim is something very hard to understand. But what she is saying is mirrored by other witnesses.
Yes. And one of the interesting things about this case, and unique about this case in particular, is the theme of Diddy and the power in that context. And so for many of these women, and there's no doubt that he's very charismatic as well, for these women, there was probably some incentive to go back. And I don't mean that in the way that they're to share the blame for what happened to them, because the victim isn't to blame. But when you're dealing with somebody who's so charismatic and powerful, and maybe, we don't know, maybe says, hey, I have a tape.
Why do you keep saying Diddy's charismatic? When I look at Diddy, I see Satan himself. I mean, all of these witnesses cannot be lying. And he's the only one telling the truth? I mean, he's got over 40 lawsuits plus a federal sex trafficking indictment that's as thick as the Bible thrown at him. And you think he's charismatic?
Well, I don't necessarily think he's charismatic, but when you're dealing with somebody that has antisocial traits, psychopathic traits, then you would be very surprised at how charismatic and convincing they can be to lure their victims back in, especially if there's some sort of emotional connection.
Well, what about this? Money, power, and control. According to a lot of these victims, alleged victims, he's innocent until proven guilty. These victims say they thought their career in show business would be over, that he would destroy them if they didn't go along. But this whole baby oil theme continues to rear its ugly head. Here is a witness corroborating what Nicole says. Listen.
Several accusers have described Combs' excessive use of baby oil. Nicole claims Combs encouraged her to coat herself in warmed baby oil before their encounters, and the mogul could go through an entire bottle in less than 5 minutes. Former assistant Philip Pines claims the floors were always slippery while he cleaned up Combs' Wild King nights. Pine says there were often rings of oil around the bathtub, and he could feel oil in the water while he drained a used bath. Pine says he never wants to smell that stuff again.
Okay, wait a minute. Nicole, not her real name, describes waking up after being sex assaulted with the whole area strewn, the room strewn with empty baby oil bottles. Now a former assistant, I guess the defense lawyer Joshua Ritter would say, crawled out of the woodwork like he's a roach. No, I disagree with that. Look, all of your witnesses are not going to be nuns and priests and virgins, Ritter. These witnesses are corroborating each other. He claims the floors were slippery after he cleaned up after a Wild King night. I don't even want to know what that is. He says there were rings, Lynn Shaw, rings of oil around the bathtub, that he could still feel the oil in the water while draining a bath, that he can't stand to smell baby oil. That's disgusting.
Listen, we have to talk about the victims. All of these victims coming together, giving us similar stories that don't even know each other. Can we please go back to searching about the victims, talking about them? Because I'll tell you why this is so important. All of the women and men, girls and boys we work with at the Warriors are depending on this case. They're asking me on a daily basis, will Dirty Diddy be held accountable? And they're waiting and waiting and waiting for this. So let's talk about accountability. We've seen kicking, we've seen strangling, we've seen baby oil bathtubs. Let's get to it and hold this guy accountable. What else do we have to see and hear?
Apparently, defense attorney Agnefello is also on the baby oil bandwagon, and he really stuck his foot in his mouth in an interview with our friend Harvey Levin.
They call them freak-offs. But, back when I was a kid in the late 70s, they were called threesomes.
If these are genuinely threesomes, how do you explain 1,000 bottles of baby oil?
I don't know where the number 1,000 came.
The U.S. Attorney said it.
I can't imagine it's thousands. I mean, you know, and I'm not really sure what the baby oil has to do with anything.
They're essentially saying it's a lubricant for an orgy.
I guess. I don't know what you need 1,000. One bottle of baby oil goes a long way. I don't know what you need 1,000 for. I mean, he has a big house. He buys in bulk. You know, I think they have Costco's in every place where he has a home. I mean, have you sat in a parking lot of a Costco and see what people walk out of there with?
Not 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
I don't think it was 1,000. I think it was. Let's just say it's a lot. Okay.
From our friends at TMZ, that's our friend Harvey Leving having a field day with Combs' defense attorney, Agnefello. Okay, I hardly think Sean Combs is sitting out in his minivan outside the Costco buying in bulk, but hey, maybe he is, because one of these witnesses says Combs goes through multiple bottles of baby oil in just a minute. And speaking of baby oil, did not think in law school that I was going to be talking about that. Joining me outside of Sean Combs, aka Diddy's Miami mansion. Remember, he paid that whole thing off because he was going to use it as collateral to get out of jail on bond. Robert Crispin, former task force DEA, now private investigator and owner of Crispin Special Investigations. You're standing out in front of the mansion. Now, that's the mansion where apparently 1,000 bottles of baby oil were confiscated.
Yeah, it's the White Gates right behind me, and it's in fabulous Star Island in Miami Beach. It's the enclave to amazing millionaires and billionaires and hedge fund people. Certainly not of Diddy behavior category, but it's 55 acres of complete paradise with amazing views of Key Biscayne and amazing views of the skyline of Miami. It's incredible.
Crispin, did I ask you about Diddy's view of the skyline? No, I didn't. I asked you about a criminal investigation. Crispin, weren't you with the Federal Task Force in the Department of Justice with the DEA, homicide, crimes against children, and more? I don't care about the Key Biscayne skyline. I'm asking you, are you in front of where 1,000 bottles of baby oil were confiscated along with a treasure trove of digital evidence, we believe, against Sean Combs?
Right behind those white gates, behind my left shoulder, is where it all went down. It's where agents pulled troves and troves of evidence out of there, including those bottles of baby oil.
You know what? You don't have to say it like it tastes bad, because that's going to be an element of proof. And you cannot go in front of a jury and act like you disbelieve it or you discount it, because these women are describing waking up with pain in their vagina and surrounded by empty bottles of baby oil. Don't laugh it off, Crispin. But, Crispin, while you're there, you're in front of Diddy's mansion in Miami. Isn't that where he intended to stay if he had made bond and had planned to fly to Miami from Manhattan?
Yeah, actually, he said that he was going to stay right here in his Miami mansion, and he'd wear a GPS tracker, and any of his travel would be tracked. And this is it. This is where he would stay. But I can tell you from talking to some neighbors, that's certainly not what they wanted. Some of these neighbors told me today that they were subjected to 2 and 3 day and night long parties going on at this mansion right behind me. And when they talked about they're happy when he didn't get a bond, I don't see anybody crying that their neighborhood is not the center of all this attention and wild parties that last 2 and 3 nights long.
Much less the feds closing in a major raid on that place. So you state that the neighbors around that multi-million-dollar mansion there in Miami knew that there would be 3 and 4 day parties. That's certainly putting perfume on the pig. The feds call it freak-offs, aka. So did they not suspect that criminal activity was taking place?
You know, I got to tell you, I had a conversation with one of those people today about that, and, you know, why the police never came. And I'll be honest with you, You know, you got a lot of money, you party. Some people party more than other people. If you got a lot of money, sometimes you party more than people who don't have a lot of money. But these are such sprawling estates that what goes on inside these houses, you're probably just not going to hear with the hurricane windows and the size of the property here. This is home to, like I said, 55 acres of paradise. And there's only about 50 houses here, and they're sprawled out. So they got an acre and a half between them. So you're really not going to hear things when you go back inside. And Diddy's backyard, it overlooks the water. And it's the first house when you come over the bridge on your left. So it's not like he was deep inside this development. He was right at the entrance. So there wasn't a whole lot of people that were going to see anything. It was his backyard, the water, and then 395.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.
The disgraced rapper and music mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs maintains his innocence amidst a slew of sex assault allegations and federal sex trafficking charges.
Tonight we are joining you not only from New York, but we are also camped outside Diddy's Miami mansion. But first, I want you to hear from MTV's Making the Band. This is where Sean Combs is berating a woman about getting fat.
Juanita, what's your stomach looking like? For real, are you feeling a little thick? You're like a burger away.
Okay. Some of you might laugh at that, think that's no big deal. That, by the way, is from our friends at MTV on Making the Band. But it's just another way of degrading women. I want to watch this one more time. Take a look at the look on her face.
Juanita, what's your stomach looking like? For real, are you feeling a little thick? You're like a burger away.
Juanita, what's your stomach looking like? For real? Are you feeling a little thick, fat? You're like a burger away. Dr. Schwartz, could you please weigh in on this? This has just come to light, and there's so much more. And I know Joshua Ritter's going to scream to high heaven. That doesn't prove anything. And he's right. It doesn't prove sex trafficking, but it does prove a casual cruelty, a nonchalant, abusive nature toward women.
It absolutely does. And while it may not prove sex trafficking, it shows a pattern of behavior toward women and his general view of women, which is negative. And also, he knows this is being filmed and is going to be broadcast. And he does it anyway, knowing that this is going to humiliate this woman.
Ritter, I guess you're going to claim it proves nothing, right?
Burgers and baby oil don't prove anything. Listen, you can call him a jerk. You can say he's been a bad guy for a very long time. You can say he's been even exploitive of people, but none of that are crimes. All of this sounds awful, and we can talk about it all day long, and MTV can exploit it, and Harvey Levin can get into the baby oil, but none of it is evidence in court. And that's my whole point, is the government better be coming with something better than baby oil and burgers if they want to convict a man for the serious crimes that they have alleged against him.
Ritter, look around you. Do you think you're in court? Do you see a judge in a black robe in front of you? No, you do not. You are in a studio. You are in a TV studio joining us from California. We're not bound by the rules of evidence right now. We are talking about the truth. And the truth is, he was demeaning and abusive to women. Will that video I just showed you come into court? No. And I wouldn't try to bring it into court because I would lose credibility because I know it's inadmissible and it's not relevant. However, the baby oil is a whole nother can of worms because one victim after the next say that they were subjected to coating themselves sometimes in five bottles of baby oil before they were sex assaulted. Again, Combs innocent until proven guilty. And speaking of baby oil, back to the Miami mansion, Robert Crispin standing by, owner of Crispin Special Investigations, former Fed in that jurisdiction. You know, now that I'm thinking about where you are, Crispin, Diddy paid down the mortgage. I think he paid it off. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sydney Sumner. So he could use that house as collateral if he were allowed bail. He was not allowed bail. That means that thing is paid off in full. Multi-million-dollar home. I think the victims are going to go after that in lawsuits. That's going to be attached to these lawsuits. I mean, tell me about it. How big is it? How much is it worth?
No, Nancy, it's valued right now at about $48 million, but he paid off the $18 million thinking it's going to tell the judge, hey, I'm putting up my entire house. Well, that was a really bad decision on his lawyer's part, because there's a thing in the federal government called forfeiture. And the government is in the business of making money as well. So that house is going to be forfeited. I can guarantee you that house is going to the government.
Legal documents we obtained show that he paid off the $18 million that he still owed on that Miami property so he could use as collateral in a bail plea. The home is completely unencumbered. Now, I think as Crispin is pointing out, that was the home he intended to use as his hidey hole if he made bond. And again, Crispin, the significance of this mansion is guns, ammunition, drugs, and large amounts of baby oil and lubricant related to violent sex events dubbed freak-offs were found there in the mansion behind you.
Exactly, Nancy. The white gates behind me was ground zero for all this nefarious and criminal behavior. And when the feds came showing up on the door and took all that evidence, the baby oil, the electronic evidence, this is everything that got him indicted.
Diddy's defense is now claiming the government is spying on the rapper behind bars. The attorneys allege prosecutors arranged the search of Combs' jail cell not to look for contraband, but for evidence. They insist federal investigators are posing as prison guards to listen in and record all Combs' phone calls, including those with his attorneys, to then furnish the recordings to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Diddy-noia. That's right. Diddy's paranoia knows no heights. I'm just wondering if rich and powerful people are more paranoid than the rest of us. Joining me right now, special guest, Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, former associate warden at MDC, Metropolitan Detention Center, housing Diddy. He is also founder and president of A New Daylight Foundation. He is the author of Who Are You? See It, Say It, Seize It. Dr. Hendricks, I could go on about your resume, but can we get right down to it? Sean Combs now claiming that prosecutors are in disguise, planted within the MDC to spy on him in his jail cell. This is your home away from home, MDC. What about it? Did you ever supervise any special ops with the prosecutors dressed up in disguise to spy on a jailmate?
Not at all. There are not enough resources for agents to be posed as correctional officers to just spy specifically on Mr. Combs. The allegations are far-fetched. I would call them a Hail Mary. I believe he's getting the same attention that all other offenders that are awaiting trial or waiting to be sent to a prison, just like anyone else. Now, I will say there are special operations that does occur in federal facilities and state facilities and county facilities all across the country. However, it would have this operation would have to go all the way up through the DOJ and get clearance for what we call a Office of Enforcement Operations process. However, I just feel like he's paranoid, and I just don't understand. I don't think he knows where the next shot at him is going to come from, because he's done so many people allegedly done so many people wrong, and so many lawsuits are coming his way. I feel in a paranoid state, really just trying to figure out where the next shot at him is going to come.
Okay, hold on. Dr. Hendricks, let me just correct you, okay? Nobody's taking shots at Diddy. He's accused of sex trafficking. There are nearly 50 civil lawsuits against him by alleged victims, okay? It's the opposite than what you're saying. Now hold on a moment. Let me understand this. Nobody needs to dress up in disguise to spy on Sean Combs. He's in jail. The phone calls are monitored. Everybody knows that. That's why when an inmate calls me on the phone, which they do, to give me information, it's a collect call, and you hear a recording saying, this call is from the MDC. It's being recorded. Hello? So nobody is tapping the phones. They're openly being monitored. And as far as spying into his jail cell, that's why there aren't walls. Isn't that true, Dr. Hendricks? So you can look in there whenever you feel like it to see what Diddy's up to. Nobody's spying on him. It's jail, Dr. Hendricks.
Right. And, there's a thing of what we call sound correctional judgment. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't wake up an offender in the middle of the night to go search the cell unless there was a specific reason to do so. And like you said, all the calls are monitored. And when he's actually on the phone with his attorneys, he's not on an inmate phone. He's on a phone in a counselor or a case manager or another staff member's office, and the staff are not in earshot of the conversation. And he is able to have that conversation with his attorneys without staff or others monitoring what we call a legal call between him and his attorneys that are assisting him in his case. Uh, he has no rights in terms of privacy. I mean, staff can actually, come and search him physically. They can look through his materials as long as it's not legal materials. They can go and look through that information at any time. Of course, using sound correctional judgment to make sure that they're running a safe and orderly institution. Again, I think this is just noise on his part because allegedly he's done so many people wrong. I don't think he has many allies, and he's just trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this and making up stories, in my opinion, to try to get some sort of public sympathy ahead of the trial that's coming up in May.
Dr. Hendricks, I think you're right. I think he is being spied on, but it's not a big secret. He's in jail, and there is no right to privacy when you are in jail. Your phone calls are monitored, and again, that's why there aren't walls around you. So the wardens can look in and see what you're doing. So you know what, Diddy, suck it up, man. Now, here's a suggestion as to how you don't get feds spying on you. You don't have a female drug mule in your $7,000 a night hotel suite the night you're arrested. Listen.
On the night of once revered rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs' arrest, authorities reportedly discovered a woman waiting for Combs in his $7,000 a night New York hotel suite. She was found carrying multiple bags of a pink powdered drug commonly known to contain 2CB, ketamine and ecstasy, and admitted she intended to supply the drugs to Combs.
Many are calling for the release of the Diddy list, or the names of those with known connections to his racketeering and sex trafficking plots. The last set of similar documents from the Jeffrey Epstein trial were released in January last year. Nearly 150 celebrities, politicians, and even royals were named in the 4,553 pages of documents made public.
How has Sean Combs insinuated himself in the same sentence with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy? How has this happened? Sydney Sumner, are there serious demands that the Diddy list be released along with the JFK files, the assassination files?
Nancy, there absolutely are. Those requests have been going on for months now, and social media has come up with their own list of people they think are involved.
As a new documentary is dropping, I don't expect the federal prosecutors to be lounging, watching Discovery, but maybe they should, because these documentaries that we have seen dropped could reveal new potential witnesses, and the feds have made no secret of it. This case isn't over, and they plan to add more charges. Take a look at the fall of Diddy.
This is the first time that I'm speaking about it. It's something that I'll never forget, actually.
That from our friends at Investigation Discovery. To veteran trial lawyer Joshua Ritter joining us out of L.A., I would subpoena this witness in a New York minute.
Yeah, and if they're actually going to bring these charges, they're going to have to, because that's the point you made earlier. There's a far cry from what you say in a studio during a documentary and what you can actually testify to in court and corroborate and have backup evidence. I mean, we don't handle things in a court of law by having one person making a bald accusation with nothing to support it and the other person having to just defend themselves.
That's
so they're going to have to do something.
The state doesn't have to put up corroborating evidence for any witness. Credibility is in the sole province of the jury. Let me remind you, Joshua Ritter, you don't have to have a lie detector test or a corroborating witness or a video. If this witness says that happened, he can testify to that in court, and the jury can determine whether they want to believe him or not. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the defense having a field day with him. If he's just going to get up there and say, this is what happened to me with nothing to support that, nothing to corroborate it, they're going to have a field day with him. That's not what the prosecution is willing to base their case upon, is the credibility of one witness. You know, as well as I do, the U.S. Attorney's Office is not going to come into court with something as simple as one person making an accusation and nothing.
Well, guess what, Ritter? From what I can tell, from what we've seen of the witness list, there's a lot more than just one witness. We wait as justice unfolds, God willing, and now we remember an American hero, Police Officer Donald Sahota, Vancouver PD, Washington, passed away in the line of duty after 27 years on the force, survived by wife, now widow, Doness, children Kylie, Colton. American hero, Officer Donald Sahota. Thank you to our guests, but especially to you for being with us. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 to 9 o'clock sharp Eastern, and until then, good night, friend. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app, where you can get all of our content, where we, in our own way, seek justice.